This is the word of God. This is the nature of the truth. This is of the word. This is the Holy Bible.
Good morning. This is your Sir Mark. Now let us continue reading the book, the Bible. Now let us read from Genesis chapter 4, the story of Cain and Abel. Adam lay with his wife Eve, and she became pregnant and gave birth to Cain. She said, "With the help of the Lord I have brought forth a man." Later she gave birth to his brother Abel. Now Abel kept flocks, and Cain worked the soil. In the course of time, Cain brought some of the fruits of the soil as an offering to the Lord, but Abel brought fat portions from some of the firstborn of his flock. The Lord looked with favor on Abel and his offering, but on Cain and his offering he did not look with favor. So Cain was very angry, and his face was downcast, just like this. Then the Lord said to Cain, "Why are you so angry? Why is your face downcast? If you do what is right, will you not be accepted? But if you do not what is right, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must master it." Now Cain said to his brother Abel, "Now let's go out to the field." And while they were in the field, Cain attacked his brother Abel and killed him. Then the Lord said to Cain, "Where is your brother Abel?" "I don't know," he replied. "Am I my brother's keeper?" Then the Lord said, "What have you done? Listen, your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground. Now you are under a curse and driven from the ground, which opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your head. When you work the ground, it will no longer yield its crops for you. You will be a restless wanderer on the earth." Cain said to the Lord, "My punishment is more than I can bear. Today you are driving me from the land, and I will be hidden from your presence. I will be a restless wanderer on the earth, and whoever finds me will kill me." But the Lord said to him, "Not so. If anyone kills Cain, he will suffer vengeance 7 times over." Then the Lord put a mark on Cain, so that no one who found him would kill him. So Cain went out from the Lord's presence and lived in the land of Nod, east of Eden. Cain lay with his wife, and she became pregnant and gave birth to Enoch. Cain was then building a city, and he named it after his son Enoch. To Enoch was born Irad, and Irad was the father of Mahulalel, and Mahujael was father of Methuselah, and Methuselah was the father of Lamech. Lamech married 2 women, one named Ada and the other Zillah. Ada gave birth to Jabal. He was the father of those who lived in tents and raised livestock. His brother's name was Jubal. He was the father of all who played the harp and the flute. Zillah also had a son, Tubal Cain, who forged all kinds of tools out of bronze and iron. Tubal Cain's sister was Naamah. Lamech said to his wives, "Ada and Zillah, listen to me. Wives of Lamech, hear my words. I have killed a man for wounding me, a young man for injuring me. If Cain is avenged 7 times, then Lamech is 77 times." Adam lay with his wife again, and she gave birth to a son, and named him Seth, saying, God has granted me another child in place of Abel, since Cain killed him. Seth also had a son, and named him Enosh. At the time, man began to call on the name of the Lord. Now, the book of Genesis tells the story of how the world was created. And chapter 4, it tells the story of how man began to fill the earth from the perception of the sons of Adam and Eve, Cain and Abel. Now Cain was the eldest brother and Abel was the youngest brother. The Bible mentions just two sons, Cain and Abel, but the Bible never mentions the presence of their sisters. The books of some scholars, they said that Cain and Abel got sisters. Just not mention the Bible because the Bible is patriarchal, mentioning only the male side. Now let's talk about the offering of Cain and Abel. Last time we read about after Adam and Eve fell into sin. In Genesis chapter 3 verse 21, the Lord God made garments of skin for Adam and his wife and clothed them. Genesis chapter 3 verse 21 talks about God made a sacrificial offering for Adam and Eve, and the skin of the animal, he made it cloth for Adam and Eve. That was the first sacrificial lamb, symbolizing the coming forth of the Messiah who will die, will be sacrificed for the sins of man. It was the first kill that Adam and Eve had seen in their lives, and since that day, that was the requirement of God to be offered. It's called the offering of the lamb. That was what God had required Cain and Abel to offer him, the sacrificial lamb for the remissions of sin, and not the sacrifices, and not the offering of the field, not the fruits, not anything at the crops, but God requires the sacrifice of an unblemished lamb, whose blood will be shed for the remission of sin, who will be representing the death of the Messiah in the future 4,000 years later. But Cain's head is somewhere else. God required him to offer a sacrificial lamb, but he offered his fruits of the field, which was not the requirements God required him. Of course, Abel obeyed and followed the instructions of God. So, whose offering God accepted? It was the offering of Abel. Now, when God accepted the offering of Abel, when God smelled the offering of Abel and he accepted it, Cain became angry. His face was downcast, just like this. He was mad, furious at his brother Abel, because God has accepted his offering, but God never accepted his. His heart was closed, his mind was closed, and he forgot that he disobeyed God, just like his parents. You know, his parents, Eve and Adam. God said, do not go near the tree of life, do not eat the fruit from the tree of life. And but they disobeyed. And so this is what Cain has done. Disobedience. It is always disobedience from God, disobedience from the law of God. Disobedience from God's law always brings forth sin and death, because Cain has killed his brother Abel. It was sad. That was the first murder, the first death from humanity. The death of Abel from the hands of Cain. And when God asked Cain, God always knows He knows everything. He's an all-knowing God. But God here is doing what he did to his parents, to the parents of Cain. The investigative judgment. Because God does not judge you directly. He does an investigative judgment. He does an investigation. Just God always likes to do the process, the proper process of the law. Of course, he knows what's gonna happen. He knows who's guilty. He just does the law, the process. So he asks, "Where is your brother Abel?" Just like God asked Adam, "Where are you? What have you done?" So God is doing the same thing, investigative judgment. "Cain, where is your brother Abel? What have you done?" And when Cain denied and said, "Am I my brother's keeper?" That's when God judged him. God told him what he knows, what he's done. God judged him accordingly. No, just like how God did not kill Adam and Eve when they sinned. So the same thing, God did not kill Cain when he sinned, but God drove him away from Eden. Because when Adam and Eve sinned, he drove them away from Eden. But they lived, they toiled, they lived in the land near Eden. So God drove Cain away from that land near Eden. That land was near the entrance of Eden, where every Sabbath, every Yom Shabbat, Adam and Eve goes to the gate of Eden, sees the flaming sword turning around, and two guardian angels guarding the gates of Eden with wings burning and eyes burning. It is where they offer their offerings, their sacrificial offerings, and it is where they went every Yom Shabbat to worship the Lord. So God drove Cain away from that land and near the gates of Eden. But he made him a mark. We don't know what kind of mark is this. Is this the origin of tattoos, or a mark, or a birthmark? We don't know. But God made a mark to Cain, so that everyone in the earth would know that it is Cain when they see him, and everyone would fear him. This is the first time ever in history that men fear men. Everyone feared Cain, because Cain was the first murderer. It is the mark that God hath put in Cain. Until Cain found a woman, which is of course one of his sisters. Cain married his sister, and the sisters of Seth, his younger brother. The third son of Adam and Eve. Cain married one of his sisters, and they became the antediluvian daughters of men. When we read the Genesis chapter 6, the flood, when the chapter 6 mentions the daughters of men, those were the descendants of Cain. When chapter 6 mentions the sons of God, those were the descendants of Seth, who kept obeying the Lord, walking with God. And the daughters of men were the descendants of Cain. That is how the earth, the antediluvian world, was filled with men from sin and murder. This is your Kuya Kel. Good evening. Be good. God bless.